You think they do not care because they got quiet, because they stepped back right when things started to feel deep, real, and impossible to fake. But stay with this, because what if that distance is not the end of feeling at all? What if the silence you fear is not a cold goodbye, but a sign that something inside them has been shaken awake? Some people run when they feel nothing, but some people also run when they feel too much. That is the part nobody tells you. The heart can move forward while the nervous system hits the brakes. So before you call it rejection, before you decide it was all a lie, look closer. Watch the pattern. Feel the tension. Because what looks like pulling away can sometimes be the clearest sign that the connection actually got under their skin. And if you have ever felt confused by someone who seemed drawn to you, then distant, then somehow still there, this may explain everything. Watch closely. The next part matters. Because once you see the difference between fear and indifference, you will never read mixed signals the same way again, and you may finally understand why the people who feel the most sometimes show it in the quietest ways. When a person with avoidant habits feels something true for you, it usually does not come out as loud passion, dramatic promises, or non-stop closeness. It comes out in a quieter way. It shows up through consistency, not perfect consistency, not the kind that looks smooth and easy every day, but a deeper kind, a pattern that stays alive underneath their moments of distance. This is where many people get misled, because they are taught to look for intensity as proof of love. Big words, big emotion, big displays. But intensity is easy for almost anyone in short bursts. Real steadiness is harder, especially for someone who is scared of emotional closeness. They may create powerful moments with you. They may say beautiful things. They may make you feel seen in a way that is almost overwhelming, but that alone does not prove the feeling is deep. What matters more is whether they keep returning in some form, even when their instinct tells them to pull back. If they felt nothing, they could simply drift away and never look back. That would be easy. But if they keep circling back, if they stay connected in small but real ways, that means something inside them is still tied to you. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not in the language you wanted, but often more honestly than empty intensity ever could. And that is important, so do not miss it. When they create space, most people assume the connection is slowly dying. It feels that way. The messages get shorter, the energy changes, the warmth becomes harder to read. But there is a difference between someone who creates distance to disconnect and someone who creates distance to regulate what they feel. That difference changes everything. A person who is simply losing interest usually fades into indifference. Their attention falls away. Their effort dries up. Their presence becomes thinner until it disappears. But someone who feels deeply and gets overwhelmed may step back for another reason. They are not always trying to get away from you. Sometimes they are trying to calm what your closeness wakes up inside them. Real intimacy can feel unsafe to a person who learned to protect themselves by staying emotionally self-contained. So when feelings grow stronger, the alarm inside them goes off. Closeness starts to feel like danger, not because you are dangerous, but because emotional exposure is. They fear losing control. They fear needing too much. They fear being seen too clearly, so they make space, not to punish you, and not always even on purpose, but to regain balance. And here is the key detail. If love is not there, the space becomes permanent. If the feeling is real, the connection stays alive inside the distance. That is the detail you need to watch. That is where the truth usually hides. If the feeling is real, they rarely vanish in a clean, final way. Instead, they stay linked to you through small signs that are easy to miss if you are only looking for obvious romance. They may check in casually. They may respond in a quiet but steady way. They may reappear as if nothing happened, even though something definitely did happen inside them. That soft return matters. It means the thread was never fully cut. And no, that does not always feel good when you are on the receiving end of it. It can feel confusing. It can feel unfair. It can leave you asking whether you are imagining things. But confusion does not automatically mean there is no feeling. Sometimes it means there are two forces fighting inside them at the same time. One part wants closeness. Another part wants safety. One part leans in. Another part pulls back. So their presence can become quieter, slower, and harder to trust. But it does not completely disappear. And that continued presence, however limited, often says more than a dramatic speech ever could. This is why you have to stop reading only the loud moments and start reading the full pattern. Do they return? Do they stay emotionally aware of you, even after distance? Do they keep the connection alive in small ways when they could have walked away for good? If the answer is yes, then you may not be dealing with absence of feeling. You may be watching someone struggle with feelings that have become too real for them to handle cleanly. Another sign shows up in vulnerability, but not the kind most people expect. It does not arrive as some big emotional confession under moonlight. It leaks out in fragments. A pause in their voice. A sentence that reveals a little more than they meant to say. A story from their past they did not plan to share. Then, almost immediately, they pull back. That pattern is not random. It is exposure followed by protection. They let you in for 1 second, then panic because they let you in at all. This matters. People who feel nothing do not usually hesitate like that. They do not move toward openness and then stop halfway as if they have hit an invisible wall. But someone who cares and feels scared often does exactly that. They may remember tiny details about you that seem unimportant. They may notice your mood shifts without saying much about it. They may ask a question that sounds simple, but underneath it is a deeper wish to understand you. Then, just when the moment gets warm, they retreat. This is the part many people misunderstand. They assume the retreat cancels the openness. It does not. Often it proves the openness was real enough to frighten them. Watch the moments right before they shut down. That is where the truth slips out. In those brief windows, their defenses lower, and you see a softer part of them they do not show easily. Do not ignore those small openings. They are often the emotional fingerprints of a bond growing underneath fear. Something else shifts when the feeling becomes genuine. They start responding to your boundaries differently. In the beginning, a person with avoidant patterns may react to boundaries in extreme ways. Your distance may feel like rejection to them. Your needs may feel like pressure. They may go quiet, test your limits, or pull away to see if you will chase. But when the connection becomes real, your boundaries slowly stop feeling like a threat and begin to feel like safety. That shift is subtle, but it is powerful. They start to understand that your limits are not punishment. Your no is not abandonment. Your separate life is not proof that they are unwanted. And because they start to feel that, their behavior changes. They may pause before asking too much from you. They may accept your limits without turning it into conflict. They may stop pushing for reassurance in indirect ways. That does not mean they are fully healed. It does not mean everything becomes easy, but it does mean something important is happening inside them. They are beginning to regulate their fear instead of throwing it onto you. A person who does not truly care will either ignore your boundaries or leave the connection altogether. But a person who feels something real begins, slowly, to adjust around your autonomy rather than fight it. And when that happens, you are seeing one of the quietest forms of respect. Not control, not possession, not emotional testing. just a slow, fragile learning that closeness can exist without someone getting swallowed up by it. Then there is the cycle that confuses almost everyone: the pull away, the quiet, the return. It can feel like emotional whiplash when you're inside it. One day they are close, the next day they feel far away. Then, just when you start letting go, they come back with a message, a joke, a check-in, a softness that makes you question everything again. Here is what matters. Withdrawal by itself does not tell you the full story. What tells you the story is what happens after the withdrawal. If the feeling is shallow, the distance usually becomes final. It turns into coldness, detachment, and eventually nothing. But if the feeling is deep, the distance is often temporary. They come back, maybe awkwardly, maybe quietly, maybe without explaining where they went emotionally, but they return. That return is not meaningless. It shows the bond stayed active inside them even while they were trying to lower the emotional temperature. They do not erase you. They pause the intensity. That is different. And yes, it can still hurt. It can still be difficult to trust. But the pattern itself reveals an internal struggle. They are not only stepping away from you, they are stepping away from the amount of feeling your presence creates in them. That is why the return matters so much. Not because every return should be accepted blindly, but because it reveals that something inside them keeps turning back toward the connection, even when staying away would be simpler. That tells you there is more going on than indifference. As the bond deepens, they may start including you in their inner world, and this is one of the clearest signs of all. Their inner world is private, carefully guarded, not because they are mysterious for fun, but because letting someone in there feels risky. So when they begin sharing thoughts, memories, fears, or opinions that carry emotional weight, pay attention. This is not casual for them. They may talk about things they normally keep sealed away. They may start telling you how they actually process life instead of just describing what happened. Even the way they mention their future may begin to change. They might not paint some huge picture with you in it. They may not speak in dramatic, long-term promises, but they begin using language that quietly places you inside their mental landscape. They start referencing you in plans, reflections, or imagined moments. That matters. It means you are not only part of their outer life now. You are taking up space in their internal life too. For a person whose instinct is separation, that is not small. That is emotional integration. It happens slowly. It happens inconsistently. And if you are waiting for some grand speech, you may miss it completely. But when someone starts carrying your presence in their thoughts, even during distance, the connection has already moved deeper than surface attraction. You are no longer just someone they interact with. You are becoming someone they internally account for, someone whose existence affects how they think, feel, and imagine what comes next. That is not casual. That is real. Their words, however, may still not match what they feel. In fact, this is where many people get lost. They listen only to what is said and ignore what is done. But with an avoidant person, words are often the weakest layer of truth because words feel exposing. Actions feel safer. Actions can reveal what speech still hides. So instead of asking only, "What did they say?" ask, "What do they keep doing? Do they show up after silence? Do they remember small things you told them weeks ago? Do they make effort even when it would be easier not to? Do they stay aware of your emotional world even when they struggle to discuss their own?" These behaviors matter. They are not random. They are signs of continued internal investment. A person who feels nothing does not usually tolerate the discomfort of staying emotionally connected. They do not keep returning to something that unsettles them unless it matters. Effort is expensive for someone who fears closeness, So if effort keeps appearing, even in imperfect ways, do not dismiss it too quickly. The contradiction between minimal words and meaningful actions often tells the real story. They may never say everything clearly. They may understate what they feel. They may even act confused about their own heart. But if their behavior keeps moving back toward you, keeps protecting some link, keeps showing care in practical and subtle ways, then their actions are speaking. And sometimes actions speak most honestly precisely because they bypass the fear that blocks emotional language. So watch behavior over time, patterns over promises, reality over performance. Now here is the deeper truth, and this is where everything starts making sense. In this kind of person, love and fear do not arrive separately, they arrive together. That is why the behavior feels so mixed. Love pulls them forward, fear pulls them back. The same closeness they crave can also make them feel exposed, dependent, and out of control. So they live in tension. One part of them is moved by your presence. Another part of them is alarmed by how much your presence matters. This is not casual confusion. It is emotional conflict. And unless you understand that, you will keep misreading the whole thing. You will think the withdrawal means there was never feeling, when often the opposite is true. If there were no feeling, there would be no internal battle. Indifference is simple. It does not create hesitation. It does not create return. It does not create this strange rhythm of reaching, retreating, then reaching again. But real attachment inside a fearful system can look exactly like that. Messy, uneven, hard to decode. That does not mean every push-pull story is love. It does not mean you should excuse harmful behavior. But it does mean fear does not automatically cancel feeling. Sometimes fear is activated because the feeling has become too important to ignore. And once you see that, you stop asking only why they pull away. You start asking what your closeness wakes up in them, what they are protecting, and what keeps drawing them back when distance would have been easier to maintain. Still, there is another layer most people never talk about. When someone like this feels deeply, they often try to keep everything looking normal on the outside. They may talk about ordinary things while carrying extraordinary emotion underneath. They may act composed while privately replaying your words, your tone, the small changes in your face. They may seem detached in the moment, then think about the interaction for hours later. This is why you cannot measure their feelings only by surface intensity. Some people feel most strongly in silence. Some people process everything after the fact. Some people need emotional distance just to understand the size of what they felt. That is why you may notice delayed reactions, a message later than expected, a soft return after a long pause, a thoughtful comment that reveals they were paying attention much more deeply than you realized. These are not always dramatic signs, but they are meaningful. And if you are still here, listen closely, because this next part can save you from a lot of confusion. Do not confuse a low emotional display with low emotional impact. Those are not the same thing. A quiet person can still be deeply affected. A guarded person can still be powerfully attached. A hesitant person can still care in ways they do not know how to communicate smoothly. The question is not whether they look emotional enough for your expectations. The question is whether the connection continues to shape their behavior, attention, and choices even when they are trying to stay defended. That is where the deeper answer usually is. You may also notice that when they care, they become oddly attentive in ways that do not fit their image. They remember things they did not need to remember. They notice when your energy shifts before you say a word. They bring up something small you mentioned once, something most people would forget by the next day. That kind of attention is rarely accidental. It means you are occupying mental space. It means they are watching, tracking, holding pieces of you internally, even if they do not announce it, even if they pretend to be casual. Attention is a form of care, especially from someone who protects their emotional energy so tightly. And when this attention keeps showing up, it tells you the bond is alive beneath the surface. They may also begin making small adjustments for you. Nothing flashy. Maybe they change their timing. Maybe they answer a little faster. Maybe they stay in a conversation longer than is natural for them. Maybe they share a little more than they usually would. These small shifts are easy to overlook because they are not cinematic in the usual sense. But for someone who guards themselves, small shifts can be huge. They show movement. They show willingness. They show that your presence is not neutral. And yes, you still have to judge the whole pattern with honesty. A few crumbs are not the same as a healthy relationship, but real feeling often reveals itself first in these understated changes. So look for effort. Look for care hidden inside restraint. Look for the ways they bend, even slightly, toward connection when their old instinct would have been